In 2008, a man named John Graham won the title of World's Biggest Liar in an annual competition. What if I told you he's not that special? Because we all lie. Every single day. In fact, kids lie a lot. And animals do too. Dogs fake injuries for attention. Birds pretend to hide food just to mess with their rivals. Lying is everywhere, and there's more to it than you think. Even polygraphs won't give you the full story. Luckily, you're in the right place. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 hard-to-believe facts about lying that'll make you second-guess everything you hear. 25. 60% of adults can't go 10 minutes without lying. Think you're an honest person? Well, hate to break it to you, but the odds are you've already told a lie today. Maybe even 3 times. According to a 2002 study from the University of Massachusetts, a whopping 60% of adults can't have a 10-minute conversation without lying at least once. But even that number is a bit generous. The study actually found that participants averaged 3 lies in just one short chat. That is 1 lie every 3 minutes. So next time you're deep in conversation, maybe set a stopwatch. By the 10-minute mark, there's a solid chance that at least 1 lie has slipped in. 24. Lying can be a medical condition. So, back in 1891, German psychiatrist Anton Delbruck put a name to something baffling: pathological lying. He called it pseudologia fantastica, a condition where people compulsively lie even when there's no real reason to. Today, the condition is medically recognized and even recorded in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. But here's where it gets interesting. Being a pathological liar doesn't necessarily mean you're a good liar. Some people spin outrageous stories that fall apart instantly, yet they just can't seem to stop. One documented case involved a man who claimed to be a tenured physics professor, an ex-NFL player, and a grieving fiancée all at once. He couldn't even keep his own details straight, but that didn't stop him from weaving more lies to fill the gaps. So if you ever meet someone whose life story changes every time they tell it, you might just be witnessing pseudologia fantastica in action. 23. Everyone can believe the same lie without ever being told to. If you've watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you probably remember the line, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" Well, I hate to break it to you, but the evil queen actually says magic mirror on the wall. Yet nearly everyone swears it was mirror, mirror. This is the Mandela effect, when large groups misremember the same fact. The term came from Fiona Broome, who, along with many others, falsely remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, even though he lived until 2013. It happens more often than you think. Some stories get twisted so much they become a truth, and sometimes our brains just autocorrect reality. Now, if you and your siblings recall a vacation that never happened, guess what? Your brains just tricked you guys. 22. People touch their noses more when they lie. You've seen Pinocchio, right? Well, it turns out it's not just Disney fiction. There's some truth to that nose-growing business. When people lie, their bodies experience physiological stress, triggering slight blood vessel dilation in the nasal area. This can cause subtle facial flushing, or an urge to touch the nose, often a subconscious giveaway of deception. A study by Chicago scientists found that when someone lies, their nasal tissues swell with blood, releasing histamines that cause itching. Instinctively, liars reach up to scratch, making their dishonesty literally itch at them. Need proof? Look no further than President Bill Clinton during his grand jury testimony about his real relationship with Monica Lewinsky. He broke his gaze, stumbled over his words, and, most tellingly, kept touching his nose when he was lying. In total, he touched his nose 26 times. This phenomenon is fittingly called the Pinocchio effect. That said, next time you suspect someone's lying, watch their nose. They might just rat them out. 21. The most common lie in the world is, "I'm fine." If you're guilty of this, raise your hand. Yeah, I am too. Whether we're stressed, overwhelmed, or barely keeping it together, we say it anyway. It's not to deceive, but because saying anything else feels like too much effort. Sometimes we don't want to explain. Other times we don't want to make it awkward. And let's be honest, most people asking don't really want the full story anyway. To avoid uncomfortable conversations or escape feeling like you're burdening someone else, we lie. Yes, It's a small lie, but one we tell almost daily. Now tell me, how are you? And this time answer honestly in the comments. 20. Kids with good memories are better liars. If your kid can spin a story so good it almost makes you doubt reality, well, congrats. You've got a sharp one. It turns out a sharp mind doesn't just help with school, it makes for a better liar too. Research found that children with stronger working memories are more skilled at deception. Why? Because lying takes brain power. You have to keep track of details, remember what you said, and make sure your story doesn't fall apart. Even toddlers start using deception before they can talk, fake crying for attention or pretending they weren't reaching for something they shouldn't. That said, if your little one's lies are oddly convincing, don't panic. You might just have a little genius on your hands. 19. Americans tell 11 lies a week, and that's just the ones they admit to. On average, Americans tell about 11 lies per week. That's roughly 1 to 2 a day. So if you haven't lied yet, you're either a saint or you just haven't spoken to anyone. Most of these are harmless little deceptions, but they still count. That includes you assuring someone you're on your way when you haven't even left the house, or pretending you read the terms and conditions. Of course, this number isn't set in stone. Some studies report higher or lower figures. And let's be honest, if people are admitting to 11, the real number is probably way higher. Because, what's one more lie on top of all the rest? 18. False memories can be implanted. You think your memory is rock solid? Think again. Alan Alda went his whole life feeling pretty natural about hard-boiled eggs, until one day after a simple conversation he became absolutely convinced he had always hated them. Suddenly, he would recall getting sick from them as a kid, even vividly remembering the moment he threw up. The problem? None of it ever happened. Turns out Alda had unknowingly become a test subject for Elizabeth Loftus, a psychologist obsessed with the unreliability of memory. And it's not just misremembering small details. Loftus and her team have proven that entirely false memories can be implanted. In one study, people recalled seeing wounded animals at a crime scene. Later, when told no animals had actually been there, some still insisted they'd seen a bleeding cat, complete with detailed descriptions. It gets even crazier. Experiments have shown that people can be convinced they committed crimes that never happened. So if your roommate swears they paid you back for that pizza and you know they didn't, there's a possibility that someone tampered with your memory. 17. The polygraph doesn't always tell the truth. Hollywood crime dramas make it seem like lie detectors are foolproof. Just strap someone in, ask a few questions, and let the machine do the rest. That sounds pretty high tech, right? Well, not so fast. In reality, polygraphs are only 60 to 70% accurate. That means out of 100 tested people, 30 to 40% of individuals could be falsely accused of lying. The accuracy depends on multiple factors: the examiner's skill, the machine's reliability, and even the psychological state of the person being tested. Because of this inconsistency, most courts don't accept polygraph results as evidence. They're just not reliable enough to separate fact from fiction. So while it might look cool on TV, in real life, the lie detector test is far from a truth-telling machine. 16. The deadliest lie in medical history. Ever felt uncomfortable looking at the scary warnings on cigarette packs? Well, don't blame them. They're just making up for nearly half a century of deception. Back in 1951, when doctors started linking smoking to lung cancer, the tobacco industry had a simple solution: hire scientists to lie. In a desperate attempt to protect their profits, cigarette companies released the Frank Statement to cigarette smokers, assuring the public that smoking was completely safe. No addiction, no cancer, just smooth, satisfying deception. This deliberate misinformation delayed public awareness for over 40 years, leading to millions of preventable deaths. So, the next time you see a warning label, remember, it's there because, for decades, the truth was buried under a cloud of smoke. 15. Even trained professionals are bad at spotting lies. TV makes it look easy. Crime shows love to depict professionals taking one glance at a suspect, reading their body language, and instantly declaring they're lying. Looks cool on screen, but in real life, not so much. The truth is, most people are terrible at spotting lies, even trained professionals. Studies show that law enforcement, judges, psychologists, and job interviewers detect deception only about 54% of the time. That's barely better than flipping a coin. After 20 years of research, the verdict is clear. When it comes to knowing if someone's lying, even the experts are just guessing. 14. Lying can speed up aging. If you've ever told a lie so bad that it kept you up at night, congratulations. You've just shaved some time off your life. Turns out, chronic stress from deception can actually speed up aging. How? It all comes down to telomeres, the little protective caps on your DNA that keep your cells from wearing out too quickly. Stress, especially the kind that comes with keeping up with your own web of lies, shortens those telomeres, leading to faster aging and cellular damage. In other words, habitual liars might not just lose credibility, they can also lose their youthful glow. So if someone in your life looks like they've aged 10 years overnight, maybe don't trust their story too much. 13. Lying can be contagious. You know how yawns are contagious? One person does it and suddenly half the room is doing the same. Damn it. I can't even read the word. Well, lying works in a weirdly similar way. When people see others being dishonest, and they believe it's acceptable in that situation, they're more likely to follow suit. But here's the catch. This only really applies when the liar is someone they see as part of their in-group, aka one of us. If the dishonesty is coming from an outsider, people actually become less likely to lie. Now, if you ever find yourself surrounded by chronic liars, maybe you might want to practice some social distancing. Not for health reasons, just for your moral compass. 12. An ancient polygraph involved holding fire in your bare hands. Back in the Middle Ages, before fancy polygraphs and forensic science, people had a much simpler way of determining guilt. Trial by ordeal. And by simpler, I mean horrifically brutal. If you were accused of a crime, you didn't get a lawyer. You got fire, boiling water, or whatever other cruel test they felt like throwing at you. One of the worst? Ordeal by fire. You'd either walk barefoot over red-hot plowshares or carry a scorching iron for a set distance. Then a priest would check your wounds after 3 days. If they miraculously healed, congratulations, you were innocent. If not, well, your punishment was just getting started. Not into fire? No problem. There was also trial by water, where they'd toss you into a river. Sink and drown? Innocent. Which is great news, except for the drowning part. You float? Well, that means you were in league with dark forces and your fate wasn't much better. At that point, confessing to a crime you didn't commit might have been the least painful option. But if you had to choose fire or water, what's your pick? 11. We lie more when we're in a rush. Ever found yourself lying before you even realize it? It turns out time pressure might be to blame. Studies show that when people are forced to answer quickly, they're way more likely to lie, especially if it benefits them. With no time to weigh the moral consequences, the brain takes the easy way out. Deception. But give someone a few extra seconds, and suddenly honesty has a fighting chance. So, next time someone hesitates before answering, maybe they're just trying not to lie. 10. Pathological liars have different brain structures. Ever wonder what goes on inside the brain of a compulsive liar? It turns out their brains are wired differently. Literally. Researchers put habitual liars and non-liars into an MRI scanner to examine their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain linked to deception and antisocial behavior. And here's where it gets wild. Pathological liars have more white matter on their prefrontal cortex than the average person. White matter helps connect different thoughts, meaning these individuals can weave convincing lies more effortlessly than most. Now, the study isn't totally conclusive, but it provides some fascinating context. So next time you catch yourself about to tell a lie, even if it's a little white one, ask yourself, do you really want all that extra white matter? Alright, that's just a joke, but who wants to train their brains into compulsive lying? 9. People get high from lying. Lying isn't just a bad habit. It can actually be addictive. Some people don't just lie to get out of trouble or gain an advantage, they do it for the thrill. Psychologists call this duper's delight, the rush of excitement that comes from successfully deceiving someone. Studies show that frequent liars experience a dopamine spike, the same feel-good chemical behind gambling and drug addiction. And the more they lie, the more they crave that rush. It's not always about serious crimes either. Sometimes it's as simple as exaggerating a story or faking experience on a resume. 8. Hitler's book exposed the power of the big lie. Adolf Hitler didn't just launch World War II and commit some of history's worst atrocities, he also dabbled in literature. You probably already know he was rejected from art school, but did you know he wrote a book? Mein Kampf wasn't exactly a bestseller for its prose, but it did lay out one of history's most dangerous propaganda techniques, the big lie. The idea? If you tell a lie so massive, so outrageous, and repeat it often enough, people will believe you, because they assume no one would dare fabricate something that bold. Ironically, Hitler accused Jewish people of using this technique, but he and the Nazi regime were the real masters of it, using it to manipulate Germany and justify horrific actions. According to Mein Kampf, quote, people more readily fall victim to a big lie than to a small one, since they themselves often tell small lies, but would be ashamed to tell big ones. So if you ever need to lie, maybe go big. Tell them you were abducted by aliens, not just caught in traffic. I mean, it worked for some people in history. 7. Your body sabotages your attempts to lie. Lying is not the brain's default setting. We're actually wired for honesty more than deceit. That's why when someone lies, their subconscious mind might just betray them, forcing them to blurt out something a little too close to the truth. This is called a Freudian slip. Now, Sigmund Freud wasn't just famous for doing cocaine while attending his patients, or for having, let's just say, questionable theories about sons and mothers. He also believed that no matter how hard people try to suppress the truth, their subconscious mind still holds on to it, and sometimes it leaks out in the most awkward ways. A cheating spouse trying to reassure their partner might say, I love being with you, especially when I'm not with, when I'm with you. Freudian slips prove that lies are never completely under our control. Sometimes the truth forces its way out, no matter how much we try to bury it. Dishonesty really is the best policy, or at least the safest one. 6. Lying activates the same brain regions as creativity. Have you ever heard the phrase, lying is an art? Well, science might actually back that up. Brain scans show that when people lie, their prefrontal cortex lights up like a Christmas tree. Interestingly, this is also where creativity happens. The right lateral prefrontal cortex, in particular, is linked to artistic creativity, meaning the same brain power that fuels a best-selling novel or a brilliant painting might also craft a really convincing lie. That might explain why great storytellers often make great liars, and vice versa. After all, both require imagination, quick thinking, and the ability to make people believe in something that isn't real. 5. You feel less guilt the more you lie. Ever notice how the first lie feels the hardest, but the next one just rolls off the tongue a little easier? Turns out that's not just psychology, it's neuroscience. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, is responsible for feelings of guilt and discomfort when we lie. But studies show that repeated lying actually desensitizes the amygdala, meaning the emotional reaction weakens over time. The more you lie, the less guilt you feel. And before you know it, deception becomes second nature. In other words, the more you lie, the better, or worse, you get at it. 4. Truth serum exists, and it's older than you think. The idea of a drug that forces honesty sounds like something out of a spy thriller, but truth serums have been around for over a century. In 1903, a police officer brutally murdered his wife, but denied everything. He finally confessed, but not of his own free will. The drug that loosened his tongue was ether, and it led to the first documented case of a truth serum being used in an investigation. The first officially recognized truth-inducing drug, however, was scopolamine. Discovered by obstetrician Dr. Robert House, the drug put patients into a twilight sleep, where they answered questions automatically. In 1922, Dr. House put it to the test on 2 Dallas convicts who volunteered to prove their innocence. Under the drug's influence, one prisoner reported feeling compelled to answer questions truthfully with no willpower to lie. Since then, governments worldwide have tried to perfect truth serums. The Nazis experimented with mescaline at Dachau, while the CIA and US Army sought their own alternatives. Some rumors claim the KGB developed the ultimate truth drug, codenamed SP-17. But here's the twist. No truth serum has ever been proven to work with 100% accuracy. Or at least, that's what they want you to believe. 3. Doctors sometimes lie to save lives. In 1979, a man received a devastating diagnosis: terminal cancer. Convinced his time was up, he deteriorated quickly and passed away within weeks. But here's the shocking twist. His autopsy revealed he never actually had cancer. His body seemingly shut down simply because he believed he was dying. This case, studied by Dr. Clifton Meter, highlights a bizarre medical phenomenon known as the nocebo effect. It's when negative expectations can trigger real physical symptoms. If a doctor bluntly tells a patient, "You have 6 months to live," the stress, anxiety, and despair could accelerate their decline, making the prediction a self-fulfilling prophecy. To prevent this, some doctors choose to soften the truth, carefully frame a diagnosis, or even delay revealing the full severity of a condition. After all, if believing you're dying can make it happen faster, maybe believing you have a chance can keep you alive. 2. 25% of wrongful convictions involve false confessions. At first glance, 25% might not seem like a big number, but that translates to thousands of innocent people locked away for crimes they didn't commit, just because they confessed. I mean, sounds crazy, right? But studies show false confessions were a leading cause of wrongful convictions, even the number one cause in some cases. It's even worse for homicide. More than 2/3 of DNA-based exonerations came from false confessions. Why? Police tactics, long interrogations, promises of leniency. Some suspects are pressured until they crack. Others start to believe they did it. So no, a confession isn't always proof of guilt. Sometimes it's just proof of a broken system. 1. There is a real-world competition for lying. It's called the World's Biggest Liar Competition. This event crowns the best liar based on their ability to tell the most outrageous yet convincing tall tale. And politicians and lawyers are not allowed to compete because they're considered too good at lying. Every November, contestants gather at the Bridge Inn, Stanton Bridge, to see who can tell the most ridiculous yet conceiving tall tale. The event honors Will Ritson, a pub landlord whose wild claims, like Cumbrian turnips growing so big they were used as houses, made him legendary. The most recent winner was in 2019. Philip Gape from Workington took the title with a story about Cumbria's underground sugar deposits, which, according to him, explained the country's large jam production. I mean, that almost sounds legit. Think you got what it takes? Or maybe you know someone who lies so effortlessly that they might as well put their talent to good use? Well, do feel free to recommend them to the competition. And that's a wrap for today. But before you go, trivia time. In the movie Inception, Dom Cobb explains that the best way to convince someone of a lie is by making them believe they came up with the idea themselves. What is this technique called? A. Socratic questioning. B. Planting a false memory. C. Strategic misdirection. Or D. Psychological inception. Drop your answers in the comments below. Now, there are plenty of mind-blowing facts I didn't even get to, like how social media has made lying easier than ever. But some of the biggest, most outrageous lies aren't from the internet. They're from our history books. And the truth? It's both shocking and heartbreaking. Trust me, you won't want to miss these 25 lies you were told by history books. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Adios.